That was weird.
Wow, password actually.
It's only, we're,
Yeah, just
it's only
don't,
going to be
don't
on
worry
Zoom.
about me repeating that to friends and
Only
family.
on
because
Zoom.
that's-
It's a
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Only on Zoom.
It is a public.
kind of like being at the airport.
I'm
Except
gonna
you need a
change my
password.
background, otherwise you guys are gonna see my work one. Do. None. I kind of like that background better, don't you? Yeah. It's a little like just
Yeah.
chilling.
This one's good if you either have the flag or the big gavel behind.
See, I know that if I had
I
that.
prefer the
behind
big gavel.
Oh, no, it did not change.
That's all
Uh-oh.
changed.
I could be, like the one that has the big like cat head. I could be stuck with that. There we go.
Remember that during COVID? The guy who couldn't get it off.
Hey, that must just happened 2 seconds ago here, till I realized what I was doing.
I had, one of my sons had a summer job at, oh shoot, it's the furniture company. And they hired him to do like upgrades to their website. So they-
Ace and Acme.
No, it's the big furniture online.
Jordan?
No,
Oh, Wayfair?
Wayfair.
Oh, okay.
And as a joke, when he was working on it, he was setting up the CEO's profile. And just as a joke, he put a chimpanzee face in on the thing.
We ready to kick this off,
But
Keith?
he was still in the test environment.
We ready to kick this off?
I'm ready.
You ready over there, my friend? Everybody good? Put that over there. All right. All right, good evening. Welcome to Tuesday, December 17th, Medfield Select Board meeting. Meeting is held in hybrid format. Select Board, as always, is here in person. Members of the public may attend in person. In addition, members of the public who wish to participate via Zoom may do so. Just head to the town website. Click on the meeting for tonight. You'll see the Zoom link. If you don't have access to a computer, there's always a dial-in number, which again is accessible on the website. And then my favorite part is clicking on the documents so you can read along with all the fun stuff we have to read along with tonight. But this meeting is being recorded, and so you can view it at another time via Medfield TV or on YouTube, Medfield Select Board. All right. I would like to, before we start the meeting, take a moment of appreciation for our troops serving around the globe in defense of our country. Thank you. All right, we are going to kick off tonight with some appointments. The Select Board to recognize the following individuals for their dedication to the town of Medfield. We have Moira Mills, library, 5 years. I've got a certificate for her. There we go. Come on up here. Go hang it in the back. Here we go. On behalf of the town, certificate of appreciation.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. 5 years, fantastic. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Help to the
town.
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and next one up is Victoria Demir, Council on Aging. Is Victoria here?
I don't think that Victoria, Susan, or Kathy will be able to make the ceremony this evening.
And I have, so I have Victoria's here, and then Susan Allison was going to be recognized for library 15 years, as well as Kathy Mills, assessor's office, 20 years.
Unfortunately, they aren't able to be here this evening.
Because they're working hard.
They're working
for
so
all the
hard they
next
couldn't
year.
be here.
All right, well, to all those ladies, thank you very, very much. Congratulations. And then we're going to do a quick change. I'm going to pivot here and jump to what would be number 15 on our action items. We have Abby here in the audience, and go to vote to approve change order for Medfield State Hospital Vertex contract. And Abby is here, which is why I'm bumping. Oh, Dan, even better. Not better, I shouldn't say. But I know you don't take that the wrong way. So I think it's just a minor change, right? That $3,000 modification.
You want to use the microphone to give it?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, jump up there. Just up. Oh, you got the mic.
You want me to stand up or anything?
I'm okay if you're comfortable right there.
Okay. So Vertex is a Bateman testing consultant, and they're working under contract with the town of Medfield. We are virtually complete with our scope of work over this past fall.
Wow.
We're done everything except for the last building, building 28, which is the old tuberculosis cottage. what we didn't carry in the scope was a treatment of the actual tuberculosis cottage inside so that Vertex can go in and actually do their abatement testing. So it needs to go in and get a treatment to be cleared for them that's safe to go in
Okay,
and do the work. And that's what this is for.
okay.
So in order to complete, basically close out the work activity in the field, all we're waiting for now is just the actual abatement testing reports. And this is the last actual physical thing they need to do on campus
Well,
in this phase. And it's a minor cost change, but it's something that has to happen in order to finish.
okay,
So that's the summary. That makes sense.
okay. Thank you. Pete, any questions?
So I guess in those days, tuberculosis was infectious, and so they just made people go and isolate in a particular building. Is that what this was all about?
I believe so. I'm not an expert, and I don't know the SOP activity, of how they ran it, but it seems like they basically isolated one location to treat this particular condition, and that was it. Maybe it wasn't as large of a issue that it could be isolated to a smaller building, something like that, but it was a specialty building essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's all for me.
So the only question, Bill, I was doing a lot of this stuff with my phone for the last week, so it was interesting to have a little micro screen. But Bill's comments had to do, I think, with the first off, we didn't understand, or at least I didn't understand the background. This is something that Trinity wants done so that the abatement work can proceed, is what we're really saying.
It has to be done.
Yeah, it's not almost one, it's needs.
Yeah, and Vertex is doing this because if they're going to go in and do the abatement, they're saying we need to sit there and spray this. But the terms of that basically said, we can't promise you that any of this will work, but the risk of that would be they're going to do the work. They've disavowed any responsibility for having that work be effective, but they're the ones entering the building.
Right.
And it's a small contract that you want. That's
Well,
really,
or
that
need- or
you need
need.
to have. You
Yeah.
need to have. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't, if I'm understanding that right, Bill, is that, go ahead.
I have a further comment.
Okay, well, so all my comments were triggered by Bill's initial feedback, and then I took time to read the contract and said, gosh, Sam, we'll do it. Might not work. But then I also heard the subsequent, I think it was from you, Bill, talking about the persistent, that this is transmitted in 72 hours.
Yeah, it
And
could
the
be
last
dead
time
by-
somebody with tuberculosis was in the building was like 70 years ago. So as much as it's not a real pretty building, it looks like it probably. might be a high risk.
If the hospital's functioning really ended early, late 90s, and it's at least been 25 years, if not longer. That's what we know.
Be the super of all super bugs if that baby survived.
Right.
No question.
Yeah, that
No
I'm-
further questions.
Yeah, I have no questions. I've talked to Christine about it. I understand the parameters of it, so I don't mind if you want to pass the mic
Sure.
to Bill, and if Bill's got a question.
So thank you. So my original concern was about the limitations of liability or whatever, and the response that they wouldn't be responsible for it. My concern was not about whether they get hurt going into it or whatever, but that they were concerned about leaving a building that might still infect somebody. And then as long as the town still owns that property, then the town is somewhat liable for anything that happens there. So I looked up the efficacy of the spores, how long they last and everything else. And there's some conflicting reports. One of the reports, says that it can survive on hard surfaces and everything else. But in general, 75 hours, 74 hours is the lifetime of the spores. So it kind of struck me as you'd have to be a Dr. Fauci, you can get contaminated from surfaces or whatever to have to worry about it. And my understanding is also that nobody has occupied that cottage for 75 years.
Yeah.
But again, so that took care of the liability issues or my concerns about any liabilities. And for $4,600, I mean, I don't care. I mean, that isn't the issue. But my main thrust in making the comment about it was the residents are still waiting to hear from the select board about the possibility of getting the parking lot at the top of Evergreen on the top of Longmeadow on the water tower parcel narrowed, in other words, moved back from the abutters lines and perhaps moved closer to the TB cottage.
That's not what's on the agenda.
It's in my comments.
So Bill registered it as a citizen comment, so it's not on the agenda, so you can
I-
speak about it,
I-
but they can't respond.
No, I'm not looking for a response. I'm just reminding them that the residents are still expecting some kind of an answer. I had a brief discussion before the meeting tonight with Abby and Dan. And again, I've just said that the residents expect at least an answer as to why it can't be moved down there. And I also suggested in my comment that you might consider demolishing the TB cottage. I gave some reasons why it could be done without affecting the historic tax credits. And again, Abby advised me that it's key to at least one element of the redevelopment and everything else. So, I mean, I'm not hard over on that, but I at least would hope that you'd at least looking at moving it closer. And if it meant taking somewhat of the parking space that you don't need because you're not having parking for that amenity center, that you would at least consider that. So that was my comment there.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate that. All right, thank you.
So maybe as long as you're here, Abby, maybe you could bring us up to date on where Trinity is. I know that you guys are supposed to close in 3 months, so.
Grab the mic, please.
Yes.
So, as you know, it's a complicated project. We are we have authorized and are about to complete the design development of all the buildings. So that means that's a step towards the next step following design development is construction documents. So we're about, would you say 60% to construction documents, or it's a set of documents that's much more detailed than what you've ever seen before. Those will be submitted to the town in January for preliminary review by departments and kind of a draft review. We've also been working with VHB to get design development documents of all of the infrastructure. Why we're doing this is so that we can go back out to contractors at the first quarter of the year to get updated pricing. As you know, the construction pricing has been all over the board and will continue to be in the future. But we wanted to get a gut check as to where we were in terms of pricing. At the same time, we are about to submit another historic tax credit application. Our numbers assume, I think it's around $8 million in state historic tax credits. So far, we've received $2.7 million. We're hopeful that in the next few rounds we'll achieve that $8 million that we need, and then we will apply for more. And then in the spring, we will be starting our MIPA or finalizing our MIPA permitting and all of the town site plan approval, stormwater approval, subdivision approval that we need, with the goal of having all of this information and getting fully permitted at some point in third to fourth quarter of 2025, with the hope of being able to start construction hopefully first or second quarter 2026. We will be coming back to the town and having conversations about a potential extension of the development agreement. But
Say that again, please.
an extension for closing of the development.
Okay.
But we are also coordinating with CAM, talking to them about their infrastructure needs, their timing. We are at the point in time with them where we're literally talking about the property line and moving it by a foot just to accommodate their needs and our needs. So everyone's working together. You have a full team, heads down working on the project. And here we are for a $4,000 change order. It's so important to us to keep it moving forward.
So Belforge looks like they'll be ready to go forward before you are. Is that?
That's
Correct.
what they have said. We're happy if anyone's going forward. There's a lot of developments now that aren't going forward, so we're behind them all the way, and anything we can do to try and support them with infrastructure and rephasing it, we will. But we're managing the things we can manage right now, and one of the big outliers and things we don't know about, unknowns are the construction costs.
Yeah.
So
Have you had discussions with Belforge about the infrastructure, the utilities, for instance?
Chairman,
Okay, yeah, dude, can't go in that direction right now.
way beyond.
Yeah, yeah, before
Yeah.
the,
Well,
we can't really, we shouldn't
Not
really be
on the
talking
agenda.
about Belforge and you
Yeah.
right now, it's not on the agenda.
So
and
Abby is on the agenda for January 7th to give a full
Okay.
quarterly update.
All right.
it's going to be great.
Thanks
Tonight's
for
just a
coming, Abby.
teaser, just a little tease.
If you,
You got
like
'em hooked now,
tonight,
Abby.
yeah, come back then. Okay.
The cliffhanger.
Thank you. I appreciate you wanting to go there, but yeah, we shouldn't go
Yeah.
there tonight.
Happy holidays.
And when you come back on the 7th, can you update us on the status of any mass works? Any more money that you're looking to get from the
Sure.
state?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We take a
It's
vote.
a lot of nice Eversource new poles on
Hey,
Hospital
let's
Road
see,
too.
get to the right item here. I move that we approve the change order for the Medfield State Hospital Vertex contract.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. All right, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Abby. Good to see you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. All right, jump back in order here. All right. Discussion points. Vote to send Rose Bay project eligibility letter to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So, should we have Maria kind of kick this off? The best way to do it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on tonight. I have been compiling the comments from all department heads on the Rose Bay development. As you may know, this is substantially the same project that was withdrawn from the zoning board in 2020 due to an RFP issue, but the design and the scale of the building, the site plan, everything else is substantially the same. A lot of these comments I have compiled going through the 7 sets of zoning meeting minutes, and a lot of our department heads' feedback remains consistent with some of their concerns back from 2019. So in front of you, you should have a draft comment letter that includes land use, police, fire, Board of Health, Conservation Commission. We have also received some additional comments and concerns about the MDA and the terms of lease and how eligible Rose Bay may be. So I don't know how the select board would like to incorporate those comments, or if you have any questions about the memo that you've received from me.
So what you just referred to, just so we're all on the same page, is the electronic version of the draft that you sent to
I
us.
sent last night, yeah.
you're not in front of us, but-
It's not in the packet either.
No, I sent it last
I
night.
read through. Yeah, I read
Yep.
through that. So I
Okay,
read
just
that,
want to make
but-
sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
So Pete, I'll go to you first if you have any comments regarding,
Well, I think the Energy Committee submitted a letter that'll get included as well, will it?
If the select board chooses to attach it, yes.
Oh, yes, all right, I'd suggest that we do. And then we got a letter from a resident, Chris Potts, today with a lot of material.
Yes.
Are we gonna reference that, or are you gonna just send that on your own, Chris, to?
so the concern,
I think you should send yours on your own
Yeah.
because you identify as a member of the media. So I think it would be better for yours to be sent independent of ours. Yeah.
but will we also, there's the
Not
residents,
that we disagree with what's in it, but just keeping that.
and then
finalized.
the residents letter that came to me about a week or two ago that I forwarded you, will that get entered in any way?
That is, if whatever you would like me to submit with this letter, I can submit as in the appendix. So if you would like me to include that, I will.
Yeah, I mean, she's very close to it, a butter, she's one house away.
Okay.
So it's worth it.
Yes.
But if there's comments, should we make them to you right now, just so we can get a feel for, I don't know if you have any questions, Pete, or anything you want to comment about the project in general?
The big benefit of this project is that it provides housing for seniors that don't have much money. And it's 100% affordable, basically. And it's housing at a very reduced price for the seniors. So that's the big benefit of it. The downside of it is that it's out of character in terms of size and bulk with the neighborhood, but
You know,
it's just a problem because it's not the ideal project at that location, but it's the location that the Mass Housing or the Medfield Housing Authority has to work with, so.
Let me start by asking the question, what is it we're being asked to vote on tonight? Is it only the letter or endorsing the letter going in? Or is it, are we making a statement here? Because I had questions on the materials that were in the packet that I went through. I have a number of questions about that. I also saw the memo that you sent, and I think I've seen a draft of a memo or input from a letter from the Energy Committee. The draft I saw is not acceptable for me. So I haven't seen a final version of that. So I'm not prepared to endorse including that in anything until I see something that looks acceptable to me, because that thing was way out of line, the draft that I saw at least.
the draft of,
The Energy Committee
Okay,
letter.
okay.
Wanting to get the zoning board to encourage things on guidelines that we've never reviewed and approved. That's just way out of line. To have done that without coming before the select board to get approval for that, it was just a major mistake by the Energy Committee. So that might suggest that we're not ready to endorse. I mean, I'm certainly ready to approve the thing you did send out in terms of the responses from the department. So if it helps to be able to get an approval for the department responses, then I'm good with that.
So I think what Maria is looking for is feedback from the select board of what, if you would like to include a section of comments from the select board, if you have questions about what you saw in the application, I think we can give that feedback to Maria to
Okay,
include in
okay.
that department letter.
I'll give you a feel for where I'm coming from with this, because I've been involved, listening from the Affordable Housing Trust, talking with Brian, and just sensing candidly, I don't think this has been done above board at all. So that's my concern with this project, is that, yes, I agree with what Pete said 100%. We need affordable housing for seniors, absolutely positively. Number one priority for our seniors is so they can stay in this town. But the project should be done, if it's going to be done by the state, above board, in manners in where votes are held, and they're held very publicly. When paperwork is done and it's done above board and not potentially signed and then said it was done in front of people and it wasn't, and we're finding all these things are, it's very inconsistent. So from a standpoint of, if this is state backed, I want the state to stand behind this and ensure that Medfield, that this was done the way it's supposed to be done. And it's nothing that the state can ever be, oh, shoot, sorry, we didn't realize it was that shady. It shouldn't be shady. Shady shouldn't be associated with a project of this magnitude. So that is my concern, that I would like to see whoever's the most senior person come and present to the select board and say, I held meetings, this was very visible, multiple people were available to bid on it. I just feel like this was done with a handoff to one person. And for something like this, we wouldn't be allowed to just hand off a project to somebody to build something without putting it out there for a formal RFP. So, and then that goes, Pete, to your point of, if we had more people that had the ability to bid on it and they saw that it was going into an extremely residential neighborhood, and the only thing abutting it from a non-industrial standpoint is a school, but the letter that we received from the citizen made a call out, which I don't disagree with. When you look at all the pictures that they put in the plan, it's all from a apartment complex that abuts the industrial end of Medfield. And this is not an industrial, this is the rural urban side of Medfield, which is probably the most quaint, charming, historic part of Medfield, hands down. And it abuts a new wing on the high school. So, if whoever is doing this looks at what they're asking for, and it's side by side with Tilden Village, which is very small and charming, maybe outdated, but nothing that does not fit into the charm of the neighborhood. So I just don't want to push this through like, oh, no problem. I have a significant problem with how this has been brought about. So the state should hear, we want senior housing, more the merrier, but done in a manner where it's a very much above board. And when questions are asked by, I'll at least say one elected official, I'm not going to speak for the two of you, that whoever is behind it should be able to stand up and say very confidently, paperwork was filed correctly, votes were taken in public. You can look at our meeting minutes. You can ask anybody on the Medfield Housing Authority. They can simply recall that we did this the right way. And from what I've picked up, no one can say that right now.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, and the select board may vote on these comments individually or to make sure it's a comment from the board as a whole. But there's a concern that this process may not have been transparent. So we are encouraging the state to look into the paperwork, how public it was, have votes been taken at public meetings, have they
Were
been
votes
properly
taken?
advertised. So I try to look through the meeting minutes for the Housing Authority. I didn't find any on the website, so I don't know if they can be found at a different place, but I think that's something that we can point towards the state and be like, this is a concern the town of Medfield has as the authority that looks into site control and project eligibility. Could you please look further into these matters?
So I have slightly different view on this whole picture. First off, I agree with Pete that the project is a project. Just forget all the issues around it. The idea of that project is I thought it was an attractive project when it came up for 5 years, 6 years ago. That's when, because I had been contacted by a friend in the neighborhood when the neighbors were pushing back on it. And I came out of that, and at the time at least, Brian McMillan had modified his design to try to respond to what the neighborhood wanted. If I don't know a whole lot about building construction, but what I understand, was that the 45 units was a function of it is the economics of the project that make it affordable or viable, profitable, and given that it's for elderly housing, in order to put an elevator in, you need a 3-story building. So the neighbors at the time that objected to 3 stories and wanted 2 stories, but wanted 2 stories, I think that probably didn't spread out across more of the lot, assuming it even could. It's kind of like you're between a rock and a hard place. And where I came out on that back then and where I still come out on it is if we want elderly housing, if we want further use of the land that's in the Tilden Village area. And at the time this came up, 2 things I remember. Number one, there were some seniors who were also in these meetings who said, we would love to be able to live here. So you've got the people that live around there that don't like the building, or at least didn't like the building at that time. I haven't heard as much. I did check a while back, and it sounded like there wasn't as much consternation, and maybe even the consternation wasn't all neighbors.
To be honest, because I don't live far, a lot of those homes have changed hands in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I know. That's why there's different
Yeah,
people, and
they
it's
don't
the
know.
well, it's the new people that I was, or at least one of the new people that had taken over the lead, that I called and said, "What's here?" I didn't really hear a whole lot. Now, if they're hearing this, they may fix my misunderstanding of their irate, anger for this. I don't know, but I have not gotten the sense there's as much neighborhood pushback. More importantly, I didn't forget that there were seniors who said we would love to live in this building, and I didn't forget people on the Tilden Village side saying, gosh, if we had right now, we have seniors who are walking upstairs to the 2nd floor of Tilden Village. If we could get them into this building, that would then free up the upper floors for some disabled adults who can get to a 2nd floor, but who are on our wait list. So there's a piece of me that's saying, as a practical matter, we can find a lot of things wrong here, and we can object to those things, and the only resolution to those things, I'm not talking, the issues around legitimate votes, that's not what I'm talking about. Talking about some of the concerns about fitting the neighborhood. It's like, well, if it doesn't fit the neighborhood, then the project doesn't go through, and we continue on without the senior housing and with an underused piece of property. And given the amount of effort that's gone in, I'm not convinced that's the right decision for us to make, recognizing it's a trade-off. So that's where I'm coming from on here is a little more nuanced. The issue, I started off by asking what exactly are we voting on here today? And the reason I asked that was because some of the things that Eileen is talking about, the question is it in the select board swim lane to review the activities of the state, of DHCD in particular, to say, you haven't done this right, therefore, it feels like it's a little out of our swim lane. However, I don't think it's inappropriate for us to convey the concerns around the transparency and the legal, formal legitimacy of the process. And I think if we raise that, because if something's wrong with that, it's not us that are going to be answering to that, it's DHCD. And if we put that in a letter and reemphasize it here. You know, if DHCD says, we don't care, we just run a pirate operation here and we do what we want, well, that's just one more burden they're gonna have. If somebody does challenge it, that would be one more burden they'd have to overcome. I think it's appropriate. So the thing you want to put in, I think, is entirely.
And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to say, hey, I got it wrong. But the problem is, I've been looking myself and I've been asking, and everyone's like, I don't know, I don't remember it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, why would that be happening for such a big project for the Medfield Housing Authority?
Yes, so I think that while the only authority who looks at site control and all of these issues is DHCD, I don't see anything wrong with, the municipality knows itself best, so we can gently encourage the DHCD to look into these matters. I think that's kind of us doing our due diligence, but ultimately, it's their authority to investigate or to, it goes through a first round of review right now for the project eligibility letter, and then it goes back to them after the comprehensive permit for a final round of like site review. So it goes through like 2 different phases of this. So there is a level of scrutiny. So I think if the select board wishes to raise those issues with the process, and, it would be the housing authority's burden.
Yeah, because like I look at, when looking at the layout and they talk about, well, they want a waiver for not having enough parking spaces. I don't understand why they're cutting corners for, you need to have parking, otherwise you're gonna be parking at the high school parking lot. So now you're building a private facility and you're gonna have people parking in our public spaces, whether the high school has its own problem with parking. So it's just like, it's a simple pushback of, and I respect the comment you just made about that you have to build it so it's economically feasible, but you also have to make it so that you're not overstepping into property in Medfield that should not be overstepped on. And I know Tilden is already tight on parking. So I just pushed, when I saw that they didn't make it technically for enough parking, and then they were looking for an access road onto the high school road, there's certain things it's like, no, if you make it a little smaller and you have a longer lease, normally, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in these statements, normally it's 30-year lease. You just said you think it's 65, and I know there's an option in there for 99. So there's a very long-term opportunity to earn back any monies that may need to be earned back. And you could look at it, you could make it a little bit smaller, and all these waivers and variances you're looking for, you don't really need. So I just look at it as, can they look at making it a little bit smaller? I'm not knocking the 3rd floor, so don't get me wrong with that. And I know when I talked to Brian, and I'm not knocking Brian. I mean, Brian hasn't done anything wrong. If he's filling out paperwork that just happens to be coming to him, and other people didn't do the process right, I'm not knocking him at all. I know he's been very adamant that he's looking to build into the backside so that where it looks tall, it really is up against the backside of the gymnasium. With driving by in the street, it'll blend in more to that visual of it. Gee, it looks like a 2-story, but it's really a 3-story. So I think he's trying to do the right things, but I'm just pushing back saying, if you made it 40 versus 45 and you took a little bit of square footage away, which gave you more turn space, more parking space, it's just less intrusion into a very compact area in that section of Medfield to begin with.
On a related note, I did have a number of questions, and because you're talking about parking space, let me throw this one in. In the write-up, it said that there were designated potential future, 12 designated potential future parking spaces. And my first thought was, well, if you can put them in the future, why aren't you putting them in there now? Do you know, if there'd been somebody here from maybe the housing authority, or I'm not necessarily expecting you would know, but do you know why there's pre-planned for 12 additional spaces that aren't being designated that could be designated?
I can tell you as a general experience, basically the developer takes the position, you're requiring too many parking spaces, we could get away with this many. Let us try this, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, we'll go to Plan B, and we've got the space to expand.
Okay, because it was set up as 1.27 spaces per unit, and just some rough math, adding 12 to that, 45 units, it's like, so that would have brought it to about 1.5 spaces per unit, which sounded like a more normal allocation. Now, the argument's been made in the past with Tilden when this came up 5-6 years ago, that there are so many seniors. Most of the seniors tend to be, they, at most, they have one car. So there was a coherent argument made that you don't need to do it like it's a normal apartment complex. I don't know how to judge that. I'm open to having people who do know how to judge it tell me don't worry about it. But I was curious, why, if you have room for 12 more parking spaces, don't you just put them in? And I was thinking, well, maybe it's because when you're using construction, you need the island to be smaller than it would be if the 12 spaces were there, and therefore we don't want to put them in until after everything's up. I don't know why you wouldn't just do it if you.
That's something you could have a peer review during
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
CBA.
so that to me is a question I just didn't understand.
So I know that it was in my review of the meeting minutes, I went through some of our peer review memos as well and testimony, and it was said by our peer reviewers that the amount of parking was adequate given the demographics. I know that in the hearings it came up that there's potentially, they estimated 60 new people moving in, so it's 45 units, only some of them are 2 bedrooms. You have to estimate 2 people per bedroom for the purposes of like rent. But they said 60 people moving in. Not all of them have cars. They're not expecting much staffing needs. And I believe Tilden Village doesn't have that many. They don't have a big parking need. So that's the demographic that they used.
I wasn't sure when you said Tilden Village's parking is crammed. It's like, where are those cars coming from?
No, I mean, it is. If you drive by, I would state that like you have to be 62 or 65, and I don't think our population's getting any younger in the sense that people are living longer, people are driving longer. So I don't look at this as that's a fact. I almost see going forward, you're going to have people driving later, especially I hate to say it with so many safety features in cars. And then something I didn't pick up: is there any rechargeable sites on property? Because again, if we're going forward and this is built for the future, I would think that would want some spots saved for plugging in electric cars. I mean,
Park behind the town hall.
Please.
there will be 2 over at the high school, but
I don't
I
recall
don't see that, which I found
seeing
interesting in
EV
today's day
spaces.
and age.
That's a good note. So I can add a note on EV spaces.
It's just knowing that this is
Yeah.
we're going forward, and you're going to have people that will have electric cars. Look at a lot of seniors have actually embraced it. They're not driving that far. It's savings for them.
Okay. So for the matter of traffic, I think when they return, they will, we'll get another round of peer reviewers. So I'm sure these are the technical questions that they will be answering for us.
Okay.
It's a good question of why can't you just build the parking to the full capacity? Not that you're build it all. I suspect it's a matter of cost. But that's, just because our peer reviewer said that the parking was adequate and they didn't have any large traffic concerns either, we'll see how the developer,
In fairness,
the counter is.
for Trinity up at the state hospital, I think the Energy Committee in particular, but in general, the town officially and through that channel was pushing to get Trinity to plan fewer parking. So depending on the context, sometimes we're pushing developers down to lower numbers. In this particular case, I just couldn't figure out whether, well, I get 12 that we could put in. I'm sitting there, and it's cheaper to put them in when you got the grader there and the
Yeah.
steamroller.
And overflow is going to be hard there. There's no wiggle. You can't park on Pound Street.
Yeah.
Right. So and then that's why I'm saying the high school shouldn't be the default, because that's the only.
Yeah,
spot
well, I
we
agree
have.
with that, yeah.
Okay.
Ready for more questions?
Yes.
So then a lot of these are just questions I'm trying to understand. So again, you may not be the one who has the answers. They may not even be necessary for comments because they're just things I didn't know. In the application, I think it was the application letter, says the new building is elderly only, which I assume means, unlike Tilden Village, that's both elderly and disabled adults.
Yes.
This is strictly elderly. So that perception that if we could move more elderly into this new project would free up units for disabled adults who are not elderly to live in Tilden Village. It's not a question of, well, they could also go into this. I think I understand that correctly, but it was just a question of clarification. This is strictly for elderly residents.
I believe my understanding is that elderly housing, any age-restricted development is also available to individuals with disabilities.
Oh, okay. So
That's
it
my
might-
understanding. Council may,
It might be the same.
Correct.
The only variation would be depending who actually if it was the housing authority themselves, there's no question about that, where it's being basically rented out to somebody else, there may or may not be an exception to that.
Okay. So so this ties into another thing, that there's a couple of parts in this agreement or in the application letter that I was connecting. So on the second page of the application letter, paragraph F, which is project details, it says, as a rental property, all 45 of the units would count toward Medfield's 10% affordable housing requirement under Chapter 40B. Now, earlier, it talked about the fact that there would be a limited number of units that would be 30% AMI affordable, and then the rest would be 60% AMI affordable. So the reason, as I read it, that it's 100%, I understand if they're rental units, they count toward our total, but the way the letter read, 100% of these units, if they're not eligible because they're rental units, they're eligible because the criteria for moving into them requires qualification under either the 60% or the 30% limit.
If it's rental and it's 25%, it's rental, you get credit for all of
I
it.
understand that. But no, here's where I'm going with this, though. But the statement was that, I forget the exact number, 30%. It was, I think, 20% of the 45
Yeah.
would be the 30%, the lower income limit, and the rest would be the 60% income limit. That's different than saying 25% or 60% income and the rest are market, but because they're rentals, they all count. So the statement was, it's going to be 30% is 20% of the units will be 30%, 80% of the units will be 60%. It's not because they're rentals, it's because they're all being proposed as affordable.
Yes.
However, in paragraph F, after it says that, and says you can get that because of the rentals, it then says, regardless of the percentage of units in the development ultimately restricted as affordable. It's like, so who's representing that this is 20% at 30%, 80% at 60%, but we've got a clause in the application letter that says regardless of the number of units that ultimately proves to be actually affordable. This stated they are all affordable. So that's a real crossthread for me in this. Now, when you go to what I believe originally was the prior agreement was the 30-year lease, at which time this building would, I think, convert over to MHA as sort of, that's what I understood 4 or 5 years ago when this came up. After 30 years, this whole thing goes over to MHA. This thing reads 99 years, so I don't even know where the 65 years came from. But is there a reason why there's a 30-year commitment to the affordable units? In other words, we're signing a 99-year lease. We are setting up a 30-year affordable restricted housing. And at the end of the 30 years, then what? Because the lease has another 66 years or 69 years on it. And it sounds like the way I read it, the affordable restrictions all go away after 30 years. Maybe there's a law that says that's what has to happen.
No,
All right.
no, unless the zoning allows it as of right.
No, the 99-year one I found interesting because it was an option. The option E had the right to sign to 99. That's why I was asking, what is it? Because the option is to go to 99, but what is the actual agreement?
So if you go to the second page of that paragraph F, it then reads, the income eligibility standards for the affordable units will be determined by the housing programs under which we seek funding. Under the low-income housing tax credit program, these units would be affordable to households earning 60% or less of the area median income and would remain subject to those affordability restrictions for a minimum of 30 years. So that says it, that's the
All right,
restriction.
The MDA is
So
the missing piece.
basically, it depends on the programs.
Mhm.
The starting point is what's the underlying zoning allow as of right?
Mhm.
Housing authorities are subject to zoning, they're not exempt from zoning. So therefore, they're not gonna default to that. There will be a permanent restriction in the ZBA decision. It requires it to be affordable to comply with affordability, however that's defined, and knowing it would have to be at least 25%. For instance, Gatehouse.
But that still is a
Gatehouse
wide open loophole.
Gatehouses under programs, they're 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually the town's pushback was that's too much. Why can't we, we want to have a mix?
Mhm.
And they said, no, the programs were going under, and I don't know how many years they are, but requires 100%. But that being said, there's still, the project has to comply with 40B requirements at a minimum.
But play it out. This is going to be well past the time that I'm going to be able to have a conversation that says I told you so. Because 30 years out from now, I don't know that you're going to be able to track me down. What's not clear to me is why this is a 99-year lease.
So can I answer this real quick? In
Or
the ground
65.
lease, it says as defined in the MDA. I asked for the MDA. We don't have the MDA. The only thing we have is a document for 2019, but supposedly it was updated. So that's why I'm saying we need before we approve this to look at the MDA. That's kind of the guiding document. Yes.
Well, we're not approving this. We're simply providing.
Well, yeah. So comments is like we don't know the full scope of what's going on.
Right.
Not having the MDA, not making that readily accessible when you're giving us this, because you keep referencing something in this document that we can't read.
Yes. It's mentioned 12 times and we don't have that document.
Yeah. If you come down to it, I guess the short
They had to
answer.
provide to the state, or they would have had it provided already. So it's a public record request if they don't give it to you voluntarily. The state must have it.
Have you already done that?
I've done that, and the state came back and told me they cannot find the document. They do not have it in their records, despite the fact that I have a reporting from Medfield Housing Authority saying that they submitted it to the state.
So that's just a red flag that
Yes.
we need that.
So again, my swim lane question, it's like, well, this is state property. If to me, it sounds stupid to sign a 99-year lease that was supposed to be originally a 30-year lease that then reverted to the state. The state's not going to sign a 99-year lease that only carries a 30-year absolute
Affordability.
requirement.
Yeah.
That you could say, well, if the state wants to be stupid about how they say, I shouldn't probably say that. Maybe they have good reason. But if the state chooses to effectively sell its property, or for all intents and purposes, make its property exclusively available for the next century to someone, well, that's the state's decision. Get back in your swim lane, Gus. It's like, okay. But right now, this is very confusing. I hope that the tone of this, though, doesn't convey an anger to this. Goes back to Pete's first point. This is a good project. And I would not want to push this to a cliff that says, I guess we'll forget the project, we'll just leave that as a lot. There are people who could use this housing. It's going to be beneficial. Even if all it does is free up capacity at Tilden Village, to where I'm sensitive to, not because I have any kids that are like this, but if I had a kid who grew up and had a long-term disability, who was capable of living on their own, but not 100% on their own, and I know that I'm probably not going to outlive them, I can visualize that pressure. And if we can find a way to address that pressure, it seems to me that's a good thing to do.
So we're seeking for clarity. Well, we definitely need a copy of that MDA because it is unclear to us how long the lease is for, what the affordability requirements will be like long term, and we would just like to have all the facts before approving a comprehensive permit. Okay.
Well, they'll have to submit it at the comprehensive permit stage because the burden's on the developer to show control of the property. So they have to introduce it at that point at the latest.
Okay.
But properly, mass development should be looking at it right now, mass housing rather, to make that determination. What's the deadline for submitting this? Do you know how,
The PL, the municipal comment letter is due December 27th.
and are they proposing to come out and look at the site before they issue their decision?
I haven't received notice of a site visit.
Typically, they do, so.
Okay.
Next question.
Sure.
This is administrative. On the
ahead.
one stop addendum, or attachment, whatever they call the thing in the overall packet that we had, on item 12, which is the development schedule.
Development schedule, item 12.
Yep.
Okay.
The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th item down is the 50% construction completion date. And it says original is 10/1/27, October 1st, 2027. On the 6th item down, there's the construction completion date on 6/1/27, June 1st, 2027. I'm not quite sure unless they're demolishing half of their fully completed construction by October 1st. I didn't understand those dates. I may just not understand construction dates, but that one caught my attention. I've already brought up the parking lot, so we've already talked about that. And again, just to be clear, the thing that we're reading here about with the option of 99 years, the ground lease, this is just curiosity, the ground lease is for $200,000, and that is the lease for Century. So in other words, just to be clear, we're basically, it could be that's, I mean, Steve Nolan's been involved in this. There's people who know how to do this stuff. So I'm guessing maybe the economics really do work this way, but basically the state, because their property, is going to lease this property for a century at $2,000 a year.
Yep, with 50,000 due upon signing, yes.
And yeah,
But it's the option too. So that's what, to me, that paragraph at the 99 is. It's not guaranteed. It's the option. If you read the beginning, it says if they opt to do that at closing. So that's why the mystery is, what is it really? And then we know the max is 99.
and why is that an option that needs to be carried and pending until closing? What I just want to, it's not, I'm saying it's a bad thing. It's just,
99
I don't
is
understand.
Typically treated as ownership, and so for financing purposes, it's probably the driver.
Yeah.
But it's not something the option E has to act on until closing, which I just, So the MBA will answer some questions for us.
It's
Yes.
just, it's a logic question. It's like, well, if that's the truth, which I think we've talked about before with elsewhere, why are you keeping it as an open-ended option until just before closing? Why keep your cards covered? Why not just write it in that it's 99-year lease?
And that pushes back to me on the feasibility. If they're going to own this property and get rent for that long, they can make some adjustments to make it smaller if that's what's going to make it fit in.
Well, that's, yeah.
I mean, it's like, if it was $200,000 a year, okay, maybe it's a different story. But if it's $2,000 a year and they're collecting all this rent for 45 units, show me how much you're really going to lose if you did 40 units and you gave yourself that much more surface area.
To be fair, looking at the discussions on the scale of the project, and I looked at the 2019, the MDA that was submitted to the Affordable Housing Trust in 2019. I think the agreement is actually from the prior year. They stated in there that they have the agreement is for not less than 65 years for 200,000. So those are the numbers that I have seen in that document.
Okay.
But that may be between I don't know if that's the state selling the land or just the agreement between the housing authority and the developer. And then the first option to purchase would be given to the Medfield Housing Authority after that time is up. But I understand that there's been substantial changes since 2023. So that I don't know to what part of the MDA the changes were made. So
Was that a sale? Was that MHA buying the property? I didn't look closely enough at the words. I had it in my head that it was after 30 years, the property just reverted to MHA.
So I think it was option of basically first refusal, but I have it here.
Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know how many people are in the market of buying 45-unit senior housing projects, but for some reason, I had thought that at the 30-year mark, it converted over. And I think you're right, Eileen, all the economics are driven by how long you're operating it and what I thought originally it was, no, the way they do this is we build it, it's kind of a little bit like Trinity. What they're doing up the state hospitals, they're putting up a 334-unit apartment complex that will definitely be that for a certain period of time. When we asked them, would you sell it off or convert it after the 30-year period? They said, well, you can, but we actually have a whole arm of the business that doesn't do that. We actually like rental properties if they're good rental properties, so we probably wouldn't. So there's business considerations that I don't understand because I'm not in this business.
Well, there's also the kicker, traditionally, is depreciation.
Yeah.
And there's accelerated depreciation, which is
Right.
fine, but once that's gone, you've lost a tax shelter, and you really need to, at that point, flip it
Yeah.
so somebody else can start over again.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of works, at least in
Yeah.
the market rate.
Right.
So this is what I have, and this is from the 2019 Master Development Agreement on page 10 of the PDF. It says site control. The authority has entered into a ground lease, the ground lease, to be amended and restated at the closing, whereby the authority shall lease the property on an as-is, where-is basis to the owner entity, and pursuant to which the owner entity will own and operate the development to be developed during the lease term. The ground lease will provide for a lease term of no less than 65 years and a total rent of no less than 200,000, of which 50,000 shall be payable at closing. And then it goes on. And then the next paragraph is option and first right of purchase. It says at the closing, subject to the low income housing tax credit investor consent and applicable laws, regs, and rules. The authority affiliate and the owner entity shall enter into an option and first right of purchase agreement, providing that a bona fide offer to purchase the development or portion thereof is received by the owner entity. So it goes on, but it's an option of first. It's not like an automatic. I think it's, they have the option. I don't know who would be.
Not that it's our job to negotiate for the state, but what you just said was a 65-year lease or would be not less than 200,000. I read that and say a 99-year lease should be something more than 200,000. That's the state's problem, but the idea that suddenly doesn't sound like a free 34-year extension on the original 65-year
And that's the old
lease.
MDA, so we don't even
Yeah.
know what they've done.
Yeah.
I have one other,
Yeah,
no
no
more comments for you. This is a comment for us, and I think I'm still in bounds to be able to talk, to just make this one point. We are coming close to hitting our 40B requirements, and in fact, potentially could hit our 40B requirements without any apartments at the state hospital counting. That, I just put a bug in here because it might be something that we need to think about for the town meeting. We have inclusionary zoning for large projects, and we are about to massively overshoot our 10% affordable, and even more so when we actually, if we have other projects come on that get us to 10% before Trinity ever does its project. My concern around that is not because I don't like affordable housing or I want to start, but if the kind of economics that our town has in terms of budgets and what it costs to operate this town does require a balance. And having a higher balance of affordable housing brings in people who are not paying, they're paying below average. If the taxes they pay are below average, but the expenses and everything we face. So the issue that I see in this whole flow with this and with the other things that are going on is that we probably should talk about modifying the inclusionary zoning to not be as aggressively structured, because we're going to have a massive overshoot. The reason we were doing that was to be over a little bit so individual developers could build a house without creating problems. Now, with the kind of overshoot we've got, I think it would be worth going back to rethink the inclusionary zoning. And part of the reason I'm thinking that is because it affects the economics on projects that might hold non-affordable housing down a little bit. Am I okay?
I just wanted, yeah,
Okay.
but I was just gonna give you a word of caution because we've had this discussion in Franklin. And developments happen that dilute, for instance, the MBTA communities, which at 10% is not a break even.
Mhm.
So you actually slightly lose there, you lose here and there with other developments. And then most significantly, the 10% of 40B for 10 is not etched in stone. And there are many of us who feel that if push came to shove, the legislature, like there are a lot of communities who are at 10% and it slowed down or even stopped affordable housing from being built, they would simply jack the number up to something else.
In my view, is all the more reason not to set ourselves up to where the legislature says, well, look, Medfield's even doing it. They already have it. No reason other town. This is that kind of mindset. And MBTA, part of why I feel this way is we overshot for 40B. And I said, well, the state's trying to do this. I don't mind overachieving. I didn't know the state was going to say, oh, but then on top of that, we want the MBTA communities. Oh, and then on top of that,
Yeah, but
we want
MBTA
accessory
communities could
dwelling
be-
units.
Could be $750 million homes. Those are not affordable housing MBTA communities. All it is build for housing.
Multifamily, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, multi-family,
That's
but
what-
it
no,
could be,
so
it
it
could
was
be $1 million
small, but-
each, so
Right.
there's.
Well, but it's small. I mean, to me, the one good thing about that is it got to what I call smallly affordable,
Yeah.
where people don't have gobs of money. Now, maybe if people can sell multifamily complex like the park and charge $1 million a unit for it, like maybe they do over the Natick Mall or something, I don't know. Okay, but I'm just worried that with all these things, the state will do things in a ham-handed way. They've learned to take local authority away, dangle the grants as the incentive, but the law as the club.
Yeah.
And they will change this town.
So I think oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
For the inclusionary zoning that we currently have, it actually has never been used. We've never had it triggered by a subdivision simply because we don't have really much land in Medfield for a regular single-family home subdivision, and any apartment tends to have to be a 40B because we don't allow it.
The Trinity project is 25%.
Yes.
It's not 10%. That was, I mean, I forget which came first, chicken or the egg here, but I thought the reason Trinity was 25% was the inclusionary zoning we'd adopted. If I remember right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's rentals, it's not ownership property.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask a question? Describe them.
Yeah, I just wanted to just point something out here that I pointed out back when we were evaluating the responses we got from the RFP. A lower affordable content raises the price that somebody's willing to offer the town for buying the property, because they no longer have to cover the so-called loss of profit that they have although they don't really have loss of profits from the affordable stuff.
And a lower affordable content reduces the cost that the market rate units have to bear on that project. So it probably cuts a couple different ways, Mark, but the fact that the state might change the rules, I have no doubt they'll change the rules, and they'll do it without thinking twice about what a town wants to be. It's just, hey, we need units. In fact, it's a good idea, because if you can move affordables out into the suburbs, I suspect, I think I could probably prove this, that the social burdens of lower income people tend to be higher. So you're moving, not only are you making things more affordable out there, you're actually moving the social burdens that have traditionally been handled by cities out into the suburbs. We could have an equity discussion about that, whether that's good or bad, but I don't think we need to help row that boat faster down the stream.
So, comment from Chris?
Yeah, Chris Potts, 7 Curve Street. So I just want to reiterate both what Eileen, what you said, and what Maria said, in terms of the fact that I know for a fact, because I was at the meeting in November last year when they were discussing the MDA, and there were significant changes to the old one. And because I have a audio recording of that whole meeting, there were significant changes. I could see the red line version from where I was sitting, but they would not release it to the public. They would not release the red line version. They would not release the MDA. And I would just say that really this government body right here needs to see that document, because it's really not fair for you to be expected to weigh in on a letter when you haven't seen such a significant document and hasn't been made public.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if the state can't find it, that's kind of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the parties must have it, so it must be available.
Sorry?
The Medfield Housing Authority and Newgate must have the MDA, so that it's available. There's no question.
The commissioners should have it because they were all commenting on it. They all got a copy of it. And in fact, what was most disturbing to me was sitting there at the meeting and listening to one commissioner asking some of the very questions that you're asking here tonight, because they had a question about what it meant, what the ground lease meant, and what the terms of that were, and they couldn't even get their own questions answered about what that meant at the time. And that was even after they had an executive session on the topic. Okay. So I'm just really concerned about the lack of clarity on any of this.
So where do we go from here? You've heard?
I'm thinking, Christine, that we should invite the Medfield Housing Authority or a representative to come to one of our meetings. Independent, you've got, I think you got the inputs for the letter.
Yes.
But independent of that, I think, Chris, you're right, they should have it. So even if, we see this as a problem, we relayed all that, but there's no reason to wait for the state to respond. Should have the
No,
Medfield
we
Housing
invite the
Authority
Housing
come and
Authority.
talk to us, and we want to just, clear up the
Second
changes.
meeting, yeah,
Yeah.
we can put it on the second meeting in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if, I have some follow-up, Maria, on the letter, because I don't agree with everything that's been said here. I haven't talked to Brian McMillan this go-around, but I did talk to him the last go-around, and I guess my comments, my initial query of him was whether it had to be 45 units or not, and he absolutely was adamant that it had to be 45 units to work financially. I find him a very high-quality individual, I guess I would. He seems like a very good developer to me. I know the attorney, Steve Nolan, for the project was our former chair of our zoning board of appeals for many years, and I overlapped with Steve on the ZBA and did a lot of work and decisions with him on the ZBA, and I hold him in just incredibly high regard. He's a very impressive man and a very impressive attorney, and everything that I've seen of Candace, I think it's Avery now. Is that her last name now?
I believe so.
I find her to be very credible and very high-quality individual as well. And so that some of these, I don't think that we should be sending a letter that disparages the process and the project at all. And so that would be my suggestion, that we refrain from that sort of language. I don't know, Chris Potts sent us an email earlier today with information about the process, and that was the first I'd heard about that stuff. And so that, I think that it makes sense to have the Housing Authority and Mr. McMillan come in and clarify that for us, but I don't think we should put that material in our letter. Chris can send her a letter, as Christine has suggested.
Well,
separately.
but I actually had those questions, so I'm not going to be told, hey, by the way, her voice doesn't matter. I mean, I literally said that because it is a problem with the process. The fact that we've asked and we're not getting an answer, that's a problem. I mean, it's a process. I've talked to Brian probably more times than you have in the last 3 years. Brian calls me, I'm the liaison from the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm not knocking him as a person at all. I'm not knocking Steve Nolan. They are the company that was tapped to do this. But if the process that got them the way they are is not correct or transparent or accurate, it's like if I just stole money from a bank and I gave you $100 and you go run with it, still stolen money. I mean, like we need to figure out, did this go correctly or not? And
Well,
if it didn't, it didn't. If it did, hey, I'll be the first to apologize.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any evidence of it not going correctly. You're positing, or you're saying that there is, but I'm not aware of that. I don't think it should go in a select board
Excuse me.
letter.
So
if a affordable housing, excuse me, if a Medfield Housing Authority meeting is held without having agendas posted, doing things that are not appropriate, and that's been going on. That's just a fact. That's not me. And then when questions are asked and we're not getting straightforward answers, if the state can't find something that should be on file, that we're responding to a document tonight, that we should have say, no problem, send it. Maria, you can't get it. The state says they can't. That's a problem. Again, I'm not knocking Steve or Brian, but I am saying, Candace, you're asking to work with the town of Medfield. The town of Medfield has the right to ask these questions. And there are residents that are going to be impacted by this development. I love the idea of having senior housing. Just do it the right way.
Well, so you're implying that it hasn't been done the right way, and
Well, it
that's the
should have
part
been,
that I don't think that we should be implying to the state agency that's going
We
to
have an
review it.
ongoing project in Franklin. It's surplus town land, was transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust. Part of it, actually, I should say before that, before I even got there, the town had put it out as to have it developed for affordable housing and the community builders, which is a national affordable housing group, put in a building. The town had leftover land, transferred it to the Affordable Housing Trust, anticipating another project. They made some inquiries, they did some preliminaries with contacts with people in the trade, and ultimately, based on that, put together an RFP, put it out on the street, and then evaluated responses and made an award. And we've been working with that particular successful contractor after that, once the award was made. So yes, there should have been a process that resulted in their ability to work with this particular developer.
Can
Not
I-
just a unilateral, let's put an affordable housing project together, you do it.
And that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, can I just clarify one thing too, is that on the email that I had sent everyone, where I had those 3 points, I sat in on the mass housing workshop that Maria organized, where we heard from them about what they look for when they evaluate these eligibilities. So I actually took language directly from that, and one of the things that jumped out at me the most was that they evaluate whether or not there's site control. And so everything that I mentioned in that email was really just raising questions. It's not disparaging anybody or anything. It's just raising questions. Please make sure that there is site control is in fact confirmed, because that's what mass housing looks for. So, I really wanted to play on those things, assuming that that the state agency looks at the same things as mass housing.
Well, I would assume that there's some sort of document that confirms site control for Newgate.
The MDA.
Have you looked at that, Mark, to see if there's, I would assume that there's some,
It's
do
the
you know,
MDA.
Maria?
The document where I've looked at the application materials, and the one we're missing is the master development agreement. So that's the one that we're trying to get a copy of right now.
So until we read the MDA, we don't really know exactly what went down. And you would think if it was there available, the state would have it and could transfer it.
Well,
They can't find it.
moreover than that, and preliminary to that, there should have been minutes of meetings, documents that led to putting an RFP out on the street, and then the MDA from that. So you could have a contract that on its face is valid, but if the process was legally deficient, that's avoidable. That's an
Well, and I think
avoidable
that's
deal.
what happened to them the last time, that their process
I don't
was
think that
flawed.
was ever
and-
addressed, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
But I don't think that's our fight. I mean, that's,
Can I try reconciling Pete's view? And I think Eileen and I at least want the questions to be asked in the letter and our response. But I agree with Pete, and I think you can do this if you ask the questions clinically.
Very neutral.
So no political spin, no judgment, no disparaging
no word
tones.
sneaky,
It's just here's
conniving,
yeah,
that.
here's the things we're looking for and we can't find. Here's the things we don't understand because what we've got here doesn't answer our questions.
Okay.
And this is what we'd like clarification on.
Sure, it'll be an administrative matter, and
Yeah.
we're just seeking clarification.
And
of the
that way
process.
we ask the questions. We don't do it in a way that disparages anybody. It's
Just watch this recording.
well, and I hope they enjoy our humor when we laugh about things that we say sometimes. And I don't think that changes the idea that we would want the MHA to come in the second meeting
No,
in
I think
January,
they still
because
need to
we want to get this thing going. So
Yeah,
independent
your
of what
housing.
that does,
I
we
already
bring
put it
them
on.
in and they maybe can answer some of our questions.
Great. So, if I can recap, and I have 2 more questions for the select board tonight. So, I will be raising the matter of the master developers agreement. Can we get a copy and just clarification on how the process was, the meeting minutes, the votes? We just want a paper record of how the process was,
How the developer was chosen.
how the developer was chosen. Okay. So we'll raise those matters in a procedural way. Then the other feedback I have was there was Eileen raised a point on the amount of parking. And Gus, you said, why can't they build the parking to full capacity? So that's a recommendation I can put in the select board comments if you all three agree.
And mine is not, it's just a question. I'm
Yes.
just asking. It's not, I'm not pushing. I just didn't understand.
Yes, and I think that the true matter will be addressed once we have our peer review consultant, who will be a traffic engineer, to look into those issues. But we can always give a heads up to the developer that we're thinking about that, just so they're ready whenever the question does come. So I have that, and I know there was a question on perhaps the scale. I know the MDA I looked at said no less than 42 units and no more than 60. And I agree with Pete. The meeting minutes I saw, Brian was very adamant that 45 was the magic number. That's a number that allows him to get 100% of the tax credits and not leave anything on the table. He said that he could, in early meetings, he said he could be flexible with the number of units. He could knock it down like 2, 3, 4 units down. But then in later meetings, he came in pretty strongly saying that 45 is the number that he needed to make this work.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Is
Yes.
that based on 30 years, 65 years, or 99 years?
I think it could be 60 years because that's the document that was available to us at the time.
I think it's based on the tax credits. And they're probably not, they're not tied to that, they may be tied to, I don't know what the time frame is, but I think the tax credits is what he's trying to pull in, and that affects.
That was for the low income housing tax credits. I think it's when you do really low income type of housing.
Okay.
The whole thing is financed by selling the tax credits, just the way the
Those are
park was.
By the way, those are federal programs currently run out of HUD. And who knows what's gonna happen moving forward.
Okay.
Yes. So would you like me to raise the issue with the number of units, or would you like me to let it be for now? Because I know 45 is what they had previously approved it. So I don't think the state would think that it's too large because they had previously let it go forward.
Well, whatever you think is best, I'll let you take
Okay.
lead on that one.
Just address the bulk and density.
Yes, I have a section here in under land use department on the issues that the residents originally raised. And again, I know there's been some turnover in the neighborhood, but they did say that this was at 18 dwelling units per acre, which was the densest 40B we would see because just it's in a small piece of land. So that is documented, just quoting meeting minutes. So that could be a general enough. The residents around the area think it's too large, and we can leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not opposed to the development in terms of senior housing is where it should be.
Yes.
But I because I walk around there and I don't live that far from there, I know that the people have been waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yes.
Because I believe I got a call from Brian, was it a year ago, Memorial Day? So it's a year ago, so it was May of 2023, and then it's been dragged on till about 3 weeks ago when we got the, hey, by the way, we're moving forward. So I think it's the neighborhood has been awoken, and now it's, I'm sure we'll start to hear from them. I know that one woman already sent me the email.
Yes.
And there's been chatter with like, this is just gonna get dragged out again, what's happening? So I would anticipate after tonight's meeting and a follow-up potentially in the Medfield Insider, we may get more questions, but at least the neighbors need to know, we'll listen. I mean, we can only do so much, but we're definitely all ears.
Okay, so I might just leave the scale, because at the end, I did clarify that the abutters had said that they were not opposing senior housing. They thought that was something very much needed.
Yep.
It was just a scale, so we can leave it at that for now, and I'm sure we will get additional comments.
Okay.
I can edit the webpage. I have uploaded the new documents from Rose Bay. I can add the contact person, which I think, Chris, you might have shared in your in the issue of the insider, but I can put it on the website. If people want to send comments directly to the state, they'll have a means to.
Great.
Okay. And then we have the matter of 2 attachments. The first one is the resident letter that you got. Would the select board like me to attach that resident comment letter as a sample letter that we received?
Sure.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Yes.
That's what we're here for. We represent the town.
Okay. So resident comment letter attached. And I read mixed opinions on the letter from the Medfield Energy Committee.
I say no. I'm not saying they can't submit something, but the thing that I read is not acceptable
Okay.
for a number of reasons. Probably the primary one of which they should have come through and gotten our approval of it before they started to inject it. So I wouldn't rule it out categorically if they come to us with a revised letter. But as it stands right now, I won't support that.
Same. Okay. Okay. So we don't attach it to them. Would the Energy Committee be able to send it on their own if they so wish?
No,
Or-
'cause
no,
nobody-
they're not.
Okay.
They don't have the authority to do what that letter
Got it.
claimed they were going to do.
Okay.
Isn't that the coordinator, that they're a committee that's appointed by the select
Right,
board, so they don't have
right.
the right to override what we
Right.
might be supporting. That's
Right.
counteractive to.
They're promoting guidelines that we haven't approved, and they're suggesting action by another board that is entirely inappropriate.
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll have our own comments on the MDA, and Chris will send out her letter separately to the state. Okay, great. And on the matter of the affordable housing policies, that's something we can take up next year. We are looking into zoning articles. I know the planning board feels the same on the fact that our affordable housing, inclusionary housing, is it's too big a requirement. The state hospital, I think, has its own built in, and the rest of the town has a more general one. I know the more general one was seen as not attractive enough for developers, so we've actually seen developers shrink their proposals to not trigger it. So if that's something that select board would support, we can pick up that conversation at a less busy time of year. But I know the planning board would be receptive to that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's the point I was making earlier. I just want to see what the dynamics are driving us toward, and does it make sense?
Okay.
How are you gonna handle this letter logistically, since it's a deadline of December 27th?
Do we want to talk to Penny? See, there can be some revisions to that letter?
The Energy Committee's not gonna have a chance to meet before the 27th, so
Okay.
Penny won't have the authorization to do that.
That letter is really intended for the zoning board of appeals in any event.
That's the
My-
part that's
my-
inappropriate.
My question was as to the select board's letter, comment letter. How are you gonna get it finalized? Who's authorized to review, sign, et cetera, given the fact it's due the 27th?
So it's usually me.
Okay.
So
We're good with that.
Maria and I will work together, and we'll submit it on your behalf.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
I
we,
mean,
if
I
we have
wouldn't,
any specific questions, once we go through our notes, we'll,
yeah, if there's something that looks bad, I mean, I don't speak for myself at least, if we needed to create a meeting before the 27th to have that one thing,
Yeah, I'm available.
I'm willing to do that. If there's something, I would trust your ability to get the sense of what we just talked about and make sure it gets in there.
I don't know what your schedule is like tomorrow, Maria, but if you could get all of that incorporated tomorrow, we do have a meeting on Thursday. We could provide a draft for you at the Thursday meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
We can amend the agenda to add that.
Okay.
So I will incorporate it tomorrow. We'll edit. You'll review on Thursday. And I received other comments prior to the meeting that were more administrative in nature, just small things that maybe they should have checked the box here, because so I can try to address some of those in my portion of the comments, but just there will be some very small administrative changes on, as the more we read, the more small discrepancies we find. So, which is normal. It's a large application. Great.
All right,
Any other
Thank you very, I think
Thanks,
we're
Maria.
good.
I really appreciate it. It looks like, Eileen, you have a comment. Somebody would like to speak.
They must
So
have
I
just snuck it in there. I just,
have a raised hand, so I'll allow Jeff to speak.
talking is permitted. Okay, sure.
Everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go, Jeff.
Jeff Hyman, Comet Street. I had a question. Since, I'm sorry if you guys hit this earlier, I tuned in at 7 and you guys were already talking, sorry. There's been some turnover on Pound Street, some of the neighborhoods, and so there's new people living there that may not be aware. Is there a process or a requirement or to notify people, abutters, through the usual legal process, or
When they
how are
file
people
this-
finding out about this other than grassroots?
So Maria will address,
Yes, so public notice is required to be given by the town once they file for a comprehensive permit. At that point, we will have all of the documents that are required, so it'll be a more complete application than what has been submitted to the state, and we'll have additional powers and scope to review than what the state has. So the abutters will be notified immediately. There is the hearing must be open within 30 days of us receiving an application, so things move fast. So I will notify abutters the day I get that application. And you will be able to review the application online, and you can submit comments to me in advance so I can forward them to the zoning board of appeals prior to the hearing.
this is similar to what you did on Plain Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no limit to the number of sessions needed, whatever it's ultimately determined. You just have to open it within that 30 days.
Okay.
So it could go on for weeks or months even.
Okay.
I think we have to close it within 180 days unless the
Consent.
developer agrees to an extension. So the timeline is faster. That's why we will be very diligent in sending an immediate notice to abutters then.
Okay.
But if you, Mr. Hyman, wish to send a letter to the state, I will be adding the state contact person to the Rose Bay website on the zoning board page. So you may send your comments directly to them in the meantime, but you will also have the opportunity to comment at a local hearing.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. All right, we're good? All right, thank you. All right, so next up here is Dwight Derby Gristmill Historical Society Building Earmark.
So as you know, we were successful in submitting a earmark. I say successful. We asked for 100,000. We got 50,000. So successful. We have just been given the go-ahead recently that we can notify Dwight Derby Gristmill and the Historic Society that that money is eligible, that they're available and it's eligible for them. What I need tonight, what I'm looking for, is a vote to split that evenly between the three. In order to process the requests, I need to create a budget and send the state a budget as to how we're going to spend that $50,000. And that would require a vote to divide that money to the three agencies,
Okay.
three groups, I should say.
And we didn't need to vote to send anything for the letter for Rose Bay because we don't have a letter that we're finalizing.
Well, yeah, we'll put it on Thursday's agenda for review. Perfect.
Pete, any questions, comments about dividing?
No. No, if that's the way Chris wants to do it, that's fine with me.
I think that's the most fair way to do that.
I think I'm certainly happy to support that just out of curiosity. I'm thinking of the gristmill has the roof, where the Dwight Derby house maybe doesn't have something like, are there any
So they've
big and then the Historical Society, I think probably at least in the long run, might have significant, but maybe it's not looming.
Well, no, they've already approached us a couple of times. Oh, yeah.
They have all been meeting with Frank and I and approached us. They all have projects within the $15,000 to $17,000 range that they would like to spend, because I think they had a hint that we would probably be splitting this evenly, so they've got their projects lined up.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be spent. That's all that matters.
Yes, and we'll get the paperwork filed and notify them tomorrow.
And you just need an answer to your question. That wasn't a vote, right?
Just a vote, yes.
You do need a vote.
I do need a vote, yes, sorry.
Oh, okay, I move that
Yep.
we instruct or direct the town administrator to split the $50,000 earmark that targeted to the Dwight Derby House, Gristmill, and Historical Society building equally.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, 375th Anniversary Committee.
So we had been talking about this last year. We did not carry it forward. We've actually put together, I believe it's $10,000 we appropriated at town meeting. And we have had some people come forward who are interested in serving on a 375th Anniversary Committee. So with your permission, we will post that we are seeking members and then look to appoint a committee by the end of January.
Okay.
Just because the one person that comes to mind that stepped forward, you've got Jerry Kazanjian is one of those people, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And Megan Sullivan has offered, and there's several other people as well.
Okay.
I don't want to
Okay.
out
All
them
right, so
tonight.
we'll have a
Definitely.
list of people to
Okay.
pick from.
Yes.
Okay.
At least the people who, they might just be yesing me when I ask them in public, so we'll see what happens when I actually ask for a
There you
resume.
go. They don't have to pull papers like I had to pull
No,
for
no, no.
my next term. Okay, just checking. All right. Do we need to vote on that or no?
No, it
Okay.
was just to let you know that we'd be posting it and
Okay.
that you were in favor of moving forward with a committee
Right,
to
we are.
plan some events.
All right, next one up here, FY 2026 capital budget update.
So I just wanted to give you a quick update this evening. I know you just got this a few days ago, so you probably need a little more time with it, but the Capital Budget Committee has done a preliminary capital budget, and that's included in your packet. We anticipate using $988,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund. We have held off voting on any Parks and Recreation revolving fund projects. We wanted to give Parks and Recreation a chance to further discuss their plan for a temporary location, their finances. That's still a work in progress.
Okay.
I think one of the things to point out as you're reviewing this and as we move through this budget season is how lucky we've been to have the ARPA money to subsidize the capital budget. We've spent, over $750,000 specifically for capital budget items over the last 3 capital budget cycles. That money that we took from ARPA is going back into the Capital Stabilization Fund. That we won't have that anymore. So we will go back to only having our capital budget being funded by free cash. That's only going to be sustainable for so long. So we've been talking with the warrant committee. We don't anticipate looking for a permanent funding solution until we finalize the Dale Street School, but just keeping it on everybody's radar that we're going to have to do something to address some long-term needs. And the ARPA money that the select board did put into the capital budget has really allowed us over the last 3 years to catch up on projects that otherwise, we would have just kicked the can down the road even further. So it really did give the department some leeway in getting that equipment on board. So we appreciate that.
Just a quick question around Parks and Rec.
Yep.
Right now, is it fair to say that Parks and Rec's focus is and probably should be on the short-term interim solutions? In other words, that's kind of a I'm trying to get straight in my own head because I have a lot of questions around the more long-term for Parks and Rec. But for right now, are we sort of being tactical in how we think about it? What is it they need to keep the lights on and keep the wheels on the wagon until we get past some bigger issues like schools and stuff like that? And then we'll have, because I can see some broader questions coming up. I'll tell you exactly why I'm thinking about it. Because I'm saying if we knew that Parks and Rec wanted to head in a direction that did not necessarily depend upon the FAF lot, and we knew that soon enough where we at least could convey that possibility to the school building committee as it starts to think about things for a design of a new school. Now, there's still the open question of combined facilities. So there's just so many moving parts in my head around this thing. I don't even know how to deal with some of them. Like, I don't know what the first thing is. And I'm trying to find a way to simplify the thought process to say, no, that's not a possibility, or yes, that is a possibility. And where I'm coming from on the school side is, in the last go around, one of the school options was to plunk a brand new school in the fields, which would have, in my view, totally ruined the school site, even though they were talking about, well, we have to replace the field that we just took up by putting someone somewhere else. But it's like, no, it's an elementary school. You need the place the kids can run around. If they had that whole end of the lot, so you had Memorial bookending one side and you had Dale bookending the other side, all of a sudden you've got all those fields, and if they had that much more space to deal with or to use, that would be a good thing to know if the long-term direction doesn't necessarily have Parks and Rec having to be there.
So
I'm just trying to figure out what is decidable, what's not decidable, and because it's not decidable, we have to assume it's not going to happen in a way that will allow something.
So I can tell you what's happened since our meeting earlier in December, in that Permanent Planning and Building and Parks and Recreation have had several meetings to discuss this.
Good.
We've determined that the interim solution is to rent space at the UCC until June 30th, until we can get to a town meeting to figure out how we can determine an interim solution. And we're defining an interim solution as a 5 to 8 year solution.
Okay.
And we've been looking at, Frank did an incredible job looking at some modular alternatives for Parks and Recreation. That's what we're planning on now. We do need to have longer term conversations that you're talking about in terms of the school. As you know, the school building committee charter does not include having a conversation about Parks and Recreation. That doesn't mean they're precluded from having that conversation, but they're going to need to have some coordination with the select board to have that conversation.
Well, under the bylaws, I think you actually have the school building committee that's going to have to work with it shouldn't be a hard thing to do, but it's going to have to work with the permanent planning and
Yes.
building committee because with the bylaws the way they are, two different committees are responsible
Right.
for meeting those two different needs.
And they've discussed that, the school building committee alluded to that at their last meeting. Permanent planning and building committee realizes that needs to be the longer term discussion of what the long-term solution is for Parks and Recreation. They also, we've been working with Katie and the board. They have $110,000 left from their study that they did. They're talking about getting that back on track to start answering some of those longer term solutions with the help of the consultant they had back in 2018. So.
I think I read they were having that consultant update. There's like 5 things that consultant did. Not, as I read it, not all 5 of those are pertinent
Correct.
to this issue. So what questions they spend that money on, or part of that money on, with that consultant to update is going to be an important decision that they have to make sure they're asking for updates to the relevant questions and not just to the full menu of what they had done in the past.
Agreed. And Mike Quinlan is working directly with the board on that to make sure that we get the answers we need and not just an update of a study that no longer matters.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to mention, include in your packet, and this is just for your information, is the warrant committee has issued their budget guidance for this year. We have been working with them over since probably about August, working on our 5-year forecast and the projection. As you know, this is the second year of our new budgeting process. So we have held our revenue consensus meetings, and they have issued guidelines for a 3.6 for the school department and a 3.7% increase for the town departments. I know Jeff's working on his budgets and we've been working on our budgets, and we anticipate by mid-January to bring you a budget following that guidance.
Okay. Jump to action items here. We don't need to go over the letter from the warrant committee, or is that on the?
No, that's just for informational. I just realized as I was updating a few things on the website this evening, I will get that posted so that everybody can see what that guidance
Okay,
is.
great, thank you.
And that's been just, I have issued that to all of my department heads who are familiar with the guidance because we've been meeting in their meetings. So meeting with them for their budget hearing. So they're not surprised by anything that's in there.
Okay.
If anything, they probably feel a little more hopeful than when they met with me.
Ha. All right, then we will jump to action items. Vote to approve $3,004 in Treasury ARPA funding for staff furniture.
So this is, if you recall at our last meeting, we discussed spending down to zero the Norfolk County money.
Yep.
This is the remaining. We have $3,000 remaining in the Treasury money. We had originally, you had approved doing $10,000 for furniture, and we were buying jackets and that kind of swag for town employees who have been so appreciative. I never realized how excited people were about wearing town of Medfield stuff, and I still owe you both yours. But with the $3,000 left, we determined that we actually needed more chairs than we had anticipated. So that $3,000 will go towards the purchase of office chairs.
Here I thought Christine was going to be asking for have-a-heart traps.
I thought we were
to
getting a new
get
table
animals
up
out
here. I
of
was
the
getting
town.
excited.
I tried to do the table. It wouldn't work.
We gotta move this on
I
an
like
I
the
know.
tables.
I know.
The select board needs new cushions.
We,
Yeah, I
do, we
was
do need
thinking-
new cushions.
was
I
thinking
promise
cushions,
you.
too. I was thinking
new
cushions too, Pete. It's like,
They're 30-year-old cushions. It gets a little.
All right, so do we vote on that one?
and the weight of town government has compressed them over the years.
If you want to add to that, I also have a complaint about the toilet paper this week. So that's just
Oh.
all out there.
Coming from every angle. All right,
Okay,
move us along here.
I move that we approve $3,004 in Treasury ARPA funding for staff furniture.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to sign contract.
Number 8, we're going to hold.
Whoop, okay. Hold till the next meeting?
Yes, we have some negotiation going on, and should have an update at the next
No
meeting.
worries. Okay, 9, vote to authorize the town administrator as the contract signatory for the Mass Works infrastructure grant from Medfield State Hospital.
So this was the second MassWorks grant that we received on behalf of Trinity, and this is for the $500,000. And this was issued in November, and we're just now getting the contract to sign. So
Okay.
So do we have to redesignate, we've made you the signatory all along, but we have to do it every time a new contract comes in. It's not, you can't just say, these are, okay.
Nope.
Ready? Okay.
Keep
Ready?
it clean.
Yep, okay, yeah.
Keep it transparent, baby.
Don't want some select board out there second guessing our actions. Let's see, okay, move that we authorize the town administrator as the contract signatory for the Mass Works infrastructure grant for Medfield State Hospital.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to sign engagement letters with Robert E. Brown II, CPA, for the town's annual audit, single audit, and end-of-year report review.
this is
Same
just
old?
the annual engagement letter. This is
It's actually two of them.
yes. Is this are we in the second year or the second year of their contract? Yeah.
So just to be clear, it's the town's annual audit, I think, single audit, and that's 44,000. And then the end of year report review, sounds like it's something that's required by DESI or something
Yes.
like that. So it's a school, and that's for 5,000. So,
Okay.
ready? Okay, I move that we sign the engagement letters with Robert E. Brown II CPA for the town's annual audit and single audit of $44,000 and end-of-year report review for $5,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, board and committee appointments and resignations. Vote to accept the resignation of Holly Rand from Board of Health. I was very bummed when I read that. I understand her reasonings, but certainly very sorry to see her move on.
Absolutely. I can't thank Holly enough. Holly joined the board about 4 months before the pandemic. I can't thank her for her dedication throughout that to the town, the residents, my staff. It was incredible. So I'm very sad to see her go. She has promised me after a little hiatus, she'll be back for some smaller projects. So I appreciate that and can't thank her enough for all the work she did for us.
Do you want me to do all
Okay.
four of these? Or do you want-
We'll do them one at a
Okay.
time. Okay, move that we accept the resignation of Holly Rand from the Board of Health.
We're going to do them individually, second.
Yeah, that's right. So second, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Vote to appoint Steve Catanese to the Cultural Council.
I move that we appoint Steve Catanese to the Cultural Council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote to appoint Kathy Suma to the Community Garden Committee.
I move that we appoint Kathy Suma to the Community Garden Committee.
Second. Second.
All righty, all those in favor?
I
Aye.
Vote to appoint Gus Murby to the OPEB Trust Committee.
probably have to recuse myself.
No.
Can I do that? Oh, okay. I move that we, who is this guy? Do we have a
You have a
resume on this guy? I move that we appoint Gus Murray to the OPEB Trust Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, vote to accept the applications for liquor, common vicular, entertainment, Class 2 motor vehicle sales license, a list of which is attached to this agenda.
Technically, you're approving renewals.
Say that one more
Approving
time?
what?
They're renewals.
Approving renewals.
Approving renewal, okay. Vote to accept the renewal applications. There's no new ones in here?
No,
These are all renewals.
Okay, all renewal. Do I need to read them, or, but if they're on the agenda?
just the alcohol ones.
Just the alcohol one. Okay, so
The
So
first
just
one's-
the alcohol renewal licensee. So I will read, you want to read or you?
All the
read?
way down to Farmers Series pouring permits. You can you can read them and then just take one vote.
All right. You want a motion?
I want you to read it. No, I'll move. You want me to, okay.
Yeah, that was-
I
that was the
move
dumber
that
ones.
we approve the renewal applications for liquor, common vittler, entertainment, and Class 2 motor vehicles sales license. The
no,
list
no.
of, You want me to just do the-
alcohol licenses, you have to read them individually.
I'm gonna.
For the record,
I was going to,
just the alcohol.
and then we're going to vote on that.
Then you, and then,
Then we
you-
can do it.
then the others, you can just reference the document.
Okay.
All right.
So I only
Okay.
stuck you with these.
See, this is why I wanted you to read this. I move that we accept the renewal applications for liquor license, alcohol license renewals for Avenue Restaurant, Tom McGue, Inc., doing business as Basil, Gannon Medfield, Inc., doing business as Wasabi, Kingsbury Club Medfield, Inc., Noon Hill Partners, LLC, doing business as Noon Hill Grill, TM1 Group, Inc., doing business as Takara, Mother Anna's, Inc., doing business as Mother Anna's of the North End, and N&G Restaurant Group, LLC, doing business as 21 North for restaurant all alcoholic beverage licenses. Package store all alcoholic beverages, Bullitt's Market and Package Store, Inc., Medfield Package Store, Inc., Vet Package Store, Inc., Package Store Wines and Malt, Gulf Resources, Inc., doing business as Medfield Commons, M. Carroll, Inc., doing business as Medfield Wine Shop, Farmer Series Pouring Permits, Seventh Wave Brewing, Inc., Farthest Star LLC, doing business as Farthest Star Sake.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And then.
And
you
then
guys read.
I move that we accept the renewal applications for common vittler, entertainment, and Class 2 motor licenses, vehicle sale license, as listed on the attachment to this agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Mark, what do people get when they get an amusement license from us? What can they do?
Jukebox. There's just enumerated stuff that historically had the potential to be abused for like gambling or some sort of a nuisance thing. So it's, most of it's antiquated, but it's still on the statute.
Gotcha. All right.
We got a lot of people that have that antiquated license in town.
Does that include scratch tickets?
Ha.
That is separate.
All right, next
That's
up,
all the lottery.
Okay.
vote to authorize the chair of the select board to sign the 2024 Tree City application.
Move, can I do it?
Yep.
I move that we authorize the chair of the select board to sign the 2024 Tree City application.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to authorize the town administrator to engage Rogues Associates, Inc. to provide licensed site professional service to assist in the Medfield State Hospital environmental review at the Charles River Overlook.
Comment.
You guys, any questions?
Actually, hear it from Bill first, because the only question I had is, what I saw in the packet was not any changes, to the best of my knowledge, in response to
Correct.
Bill's.
I just got an updated version just before the meeting from Jessica Wall,
Okay.
who incorporated all of your comments.
Okay, let me just read it anyway.
Yeah.
Just get on the
Sure.
record, if you don't mind. So basically, I'll start out again, extremely happy to see that we're gonna fill the OSP vacancy. And I've checked and I had absolutely no objections to Rue, so it shows it's. I do have two comments and requests. So first, for the description of the site in both the agenda item 14 motion and in the Anderson Krieger proposal to the town. In the motion, the overlook should be I suggest the MSH former C&D area and the SPD area groundwater. And in the letter from,
Give me the second
yeah,
part of
sure.
that again.
MSH former C&D area.
Got that?
And the SPD, which stands for Special Project Designation
yeah.
Area Groundwater.
Okay. Dash groundwater?
No, just groundwater. Groundwater can be one word, two words. I don't think
Okay.
it matters.
No, I meant area
Yeah.
dash ground.
And just for your
All right.
information, the groundwater covers the C&D area, covers the laundry parcel, covers even some of the land that's ultimately going to stay with DCAM, for good. The letter from Anderson Krieger talked about it was work being done at the MSH campus, and I would suggest that you replace campus anywhere where it appears in any letter with the same thing, C&D area and the SPD area groundwater. What I think was probably even more important was that the proposed scope of work that Rue submitted only identifies the mass contingency plan as the criteria that's applicable to DCAM's long-term. And for long-term, we're talking in perpetuity, the obligations that they have at the site. The settlement agreement also applies, as well as the MCP. And the settlement agreement, in several instances, takes precedence over the MCP. And just as a couple of examples of what that is, we have the long-term monitoring and maintenance plan that took us 2 years or 3 years to renegotiate that just got passed. And the activity and use limitation for the fill areas, which we just managed to get passed about a year and a half ago. All right, so what I would suggest is that we need to have some language in there basically that says addition in front of wherever it says MCP to add the words settlement agreement and its amendment. That's it.
And Christine, that's all.
That's
That's-
been
that's
recorded
in
in
there
your version.
already,
I just
so-
sent a copy
Okay.
to all of you that came.
Okay.
that came in.
Again, I just wanted to.
Yep.
And it's just so you know why, I don't really usually make an issue over these kinds of things because we fight them out in the meetings typically with DCAM and everything else. But number one, I'm not going to be here forever on this. And number two, with every change of personnel, whether it was in the town, whether it was our lawyers or LSPs or anything else, or DCAMs, whatever, we have to go through this whole thing again, reinforcing the precedents in many instances of the settlement agreement.
Well, the other reason I'm happy, I appreciated those is because We have environmental contracts that we are having to oversee DCAM's work. We have environmental contracts, which are people working on behalf of Trinity that we're sponsoring. And then we have environmental contracts that we use for ourselves. So having the terminology clear, just for my purposes, if a year from now I read a contract, oh, that's the one that's, I kind of know which one we're talking about. So it's a good thing to do.
And
You might have to start color coding them, which section of the campus they are.
we should let Gus do the color coding. That's one of his specialties. I just want to point out that I would suggest that we need to do something about memorializing the settlement agreement somewhere, so that over the next perpetuity, people in the town, people who, whether it's Trinity or anybody else, has a place to look. I would suggest trying to get it on the town website somewhere, maybe with a separate tab. Be very important. And I
Town
would,
clerk should have it.
well, she should have it
official-
too, but again, it's how does somebody know where to go to find it, to go to the town clerk or anything
Town
else?
clerk has on her section of the
I'm gonna
website.
hold the line for her. I'd
yeah.
like to see it back.
Yeah, Mark, you're saying it is on the website, but it's under the
No,
town.
I'm not. What I'm saying is the town clerk's the official custodian of official town records.
It's already on there, but we'll
She can
we'll
put it on
under
her
a separate section.
portion of the website as she does many other.
Along with the amendment. And in particular, I mean, as I said before, the new long-term monitoring maintenance that's in the agreement and the AUL that's in the agreement and everything else, this is extremely important. I would also point out that I've been pushing DCAM to do what they did with the first settlement agreement, which was after we had signed it, they filed with DEP and put it on the DEP site lookup settlement agreement. Now, they didn't call it the settlement agreement, they called it something else, and it took me like 3 years to find it, but I did find it among the 4, 5, 7 pages or whatever of items. And I suggested that they should do it again for the new amendment. And the response I got was, yes, we're going to do it, but we want to remind the town that we keep sending you all this stuff and it's in the repository at the library and that you're responsible for having that, available if the public needs it as well. So again, that's, to me, is the settlement agreement is number one, is the thing that pretty much drives all of the work that they have to do up there. And I would post it on a banner across the town if I had the authority to do that. But it's that important. So thank you very much. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, Bill.
No problem. I just sent you the updated version from Jessica.
Thank you.
All right, I'll pass that to you.
All right, I move that we authorize the town administrator to engage Rue Associates, Inc. to provide licensed site professional services to assist in the MSH environmental review at the MSH former C&D area and the SPD area groundwater. The value of the contract is $8,000.
And we're going to include all the language changes that Bill suggested.
I just approved the contract as revised.
Yeah, so I move that we authorize town administrator to engage Rue Associates, Inc. to provide licensed site professional services to assist in the MSH environmental review at the MSH former C&D area and the SPD area groundwater in the revised contract in the amount of $8,000.
Question, are we authorizing Krieger to do it, Anderson Krieger? Yeah, so I wasn't clear if that came through.
Yeah, we're both signing it.
Okay. that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
All right.
So we don't have to authorize Henderson Krieger.
No, you're just authorizing me to sign.
We got a second.
Bill's
All
trying
those
to
in
get me
favor?
to have to do a motion a third time here.
No, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and there was a quick question here from Jeff Hyman. Can I stop by the townhouse to read the Tree City application?
It's done remotely. Brittany's doing it. It's usually the end of December. I don't know if she has it done yet. I can try and get a printed copy of it, but you do it in a portal.
Okay.
But I can, and when she completes it, I can have
do a screenshot.
her do a PDF of it once it's completed, and I can just email it to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Jeff, hopefully you heard that.
Either that or Eileen will get it when she
Oh, that's
signs.
good.
We
You-
just authorize her to sign it, right?
Yeah, when it's signed, well, it's the application itself.
No, you authorize. Signed it. I don't know if you have to physically sign it anymore. I'll double check with her, but we'll get him a PDF either way.
But if you do, you're authorized.
I will find a
Fair
way to
enough.
get him I'm gonna send
All
her a
right.
message right now.
Next up to bat, vote to approve a request from Police Chief Michelle Garrett for a vacation buyback of 10 days per the employment agreement.
So under the new employment agreement, the chief is required to notify you by December 31st if she is going to take action on this new clause in the contract.
Yep.
Ready? I move that we approve the request from Police Chief Michelle Garrett for a vacation buyback of 10 days per the employment agreement.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Oh, read the next one. Vote to approve a request from our town administrator, Christine Treeweiler, for a vacation buyback of 10 days per the employment agreement.
She too must notify you by December 31st.
I was waiting to see how you approach that.
Given that we've set the precedent that we approve
There you
requests.
go. If we did 16, we better do 17.
But she
folks.
went first.
I move that I move that we approve a request from Town Administrator Christine Treerweiler for a vacation buyback of 10 days per the employment agreement.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye,
I'm
aye.
just curious, if you go on vacation and don't have a good time, can you also apply for?
I'm not sure that's how
It's
it's
like trip insurance.
Yeah, I was thinking.
All right. 18, warrant committee requests a vote to sign updated financial management policies and objectives.
That's this, 27 pages.
Yes. And so what I was trying to figure out is, I think the first, and I could be wrong with this, but I thought the first agenda I opened, or packet opened, I didn't see the red line, but then I saw the red line. Is that your red line?
Yeah, this is red.
Yeah.
Well, this is not my red line. I think this is
That's Steve's red
Steve's
line.
ending
He-
point
oh,
red
with
line
your
to see
input.
what he
I
had
thought I was
changed.
trying
he
to
took-
figure out who
so
did that. Okay.
Most of my comments to Steve, we spent 3 hours at Blue Moon going through them, but most of my comments weren't actually recommended changes. They were questions and things that, why are we doing it this way? So he had, I didn't like blow holes in this thing. It was more just questions wanting to understand why the policy was set the way it was. And,
Okay.
Obviously he knows what he's talking about far more than I do. about
Oh,
this.
yeah, no, I thought it was good. When I saw it, I knew he had made comments that you had met with him and you gave a
Yep.
couple of
Yep.
documents with feedback,
Yep.
so. I'm,
Probably the one thing that I did that may be in here is that I went through the entire policy document where the warrant committee had made changes to specific parts of it. So he got a full bore feedback on the whole thing, which given I was involved in writing it whenever it was, or at least reviewing it when it was first written, the fact that I can look at 2 years later and mark it all up with red just shows how random my mind can be, I guess.
Well, what's nice about this, when I met with Steve, he said this is like really a great training module. So every time they get somebody new on the warrant committee,
Yeah.
they don't have to spend square one. So, Pete, any comments, or are you good?
I had some suggested edits to it, and I thought they were going to come in and talk to us, and so I've never given my edits to them. So how important is it that we do this tonight, Chris? Can I send my copy to Steve and have him consider them?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Deferred.
All right, we will push that to January. And next one, we will vote to sign the annual ambulance service agreement with Metro West Medical Center.
Yes, and this is just the annual renewal.
Yeah. The one with the list of drugs and all that stuff.
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
I move that we sign the annual ambulance services agreement with Metro West Medical Center.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Vote to sign the contract with CAI for $11,050 to provide a new GIS platform.
This is part of, last year, we received an appropriation from the capital budget to transition to the OpenGov platform for our permitting software. While Maria started on this project, our current GIS company was sold to a larger company,
Oh, wow.
and their customer service has not been what we would expect. So while we were doing this project, we talked about changing GIS, and OpenGov was very clear to us that if we wanted to make that change, it should happen now. And that would be incorporated within their cost of the new GIS. If we waited, we would face additional fees to then do another transition to GIS. So it made most sense to do it now.
Sure.
We did get to see a demo of the system, and it's unbelievable how much nicer it looks, easier to use for people, just a much more professional platform.
I love GIS software.
This is amazing. Cool. Really, really great. I know, I'm so nerdy. But it was awesome. Yeah.
So is this GIS software also, it doesn't, sounds like it, I'm trying to say, sometimes Maria will come in with great maps and
Yep.
things like that. So I assume that's our GIS software. But we also have GIS maps in the assessors.
Yep.
Is that all
So-
the same thing?
So
or
this
we
is
got-
all the same thing. CAI actually you already actually have contracts with them and they maintain the base maps for the assessors maps.
Mhm.
What this is replacing is if you go online and do our online web GIS,
Mhm.
this will replace that platform. But they are all integrated. So it's also easier for us to have an integrated system with the mapping company that maintains our base maps. And it is proving, at least from what we've seen, it's going to be less expensive moving forward than what we've been paying for now.
So just, this is as much to broadcast,
Yep.
just to clarify something, but it also reflects something I'm not clear on. I know how to get to the assessor's maps, and I know that's GIS. When you say when you go online and do web GIS, I'm assuming this is, you're on the town website, and where is it you're going to
So
get
you're
that?
going, you can go to the assessor's database.
Yeah,
And there is an online web GIS system. You can add different layers, so you can look at a parcel in town and add all the different layers we have, whether
Okay.
it's
I
water,
think-
sewer,
yeah, okay.
any of that.
So the way people would access is go to the assessors, but there's more options for what you can do with the
Correct.
maps. Got it.
Yeah,
I
it's-
actually think I saw those last time I was in there. I just didn't think it was something that I was
Yeah,
supposed to be
It's,
messing with. but
we were
okay.
we were incredibly impressed with their
Okay.
presentation to us.
All right.
We are going, it's going to take us about a year to transition. So we're going to maintain the existing system now. So before June 30th, when we would have to sign a new contract with People's GIS, we will transition over to the new system. But about a year to get it all under moving forward.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
I move that we sign the contract with CIA for $11,050 to provide a new GIS platform, period of performance running from December 17th, 2024, today to December 17th, 2025.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Facilities Department contracts. Vote to sign the contract with JB Cleaning and Painting Services for interior and exterior painting services at the townhouse for $15,900. Pretty straightforward. That's all what they were doing.
Ready? Okay. I move that we sign the contract with JB Cleaning and Painting Services for interior and exterior painting services at the townhouse for $15,900.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Vote to sign the contract with AECOM Technical Services, Inc. for townhouse window replacements for $70,156.90.
And just for clarification on that, the town is only responsible for $10,000. The rest is a grant through Eversource through the EECGB program.
So these are just basically more efficient windows. That's the gist behind this?
Yes, and the project started, we actually, if you go down that staircase, we have a failing window. When it rains, the rain comes inside the
It doesn't
building.
act like a
which
window.
It does not act like a window. And we had a quote just to replace the glazing on the window for about $5,900 last year. It didn't make the cutoff for any of our projects, so we've been kind of just standing there with buckets, really. When this grant opportunity came available, we worked with Susan McPhee and we were able to get the 3 windows on the side and the 2 back bay windows covered through the grant.
How many windows are we doing for 70?
It's 3 windows on the side of the building and the ground floor in the back.
Boy, the windows are expensive, huh?
Very.
Yeah, okay.
Just backstory on this. When Ben is one of the people besides Mo who sends me contracts ahead of time. And for anybody, the reason I'm bringing this up isn't just to tell you a story, but for anybody who's looking at the packet and you look at that contract, the only thing you'll see behind the contract is the Eversource assessment of the energy savings. So this is a $70,000 project, and the energy savings show $1,700 a year, and the payback period was 40 years. So my first question to Ben was, why are we spending $70,000 on a project that doesn't have a payback for 40 years? If you do look at the packet and you see that, don't do what I did, which is assume that was the full story. The real issue is we have windows that are failing. They're probably leaking a lot of air, certainly. So yes, it'll save us money on energy, but actually The real value has to do with the fact that we're fixing windows that aren't working very well. And it just so happens we're replacing them with windows that save energy.
Novel concept.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have some happy ground floor staff members with new windows, hopefully new carpet with actual padding so it's not so cold down there, and some new jackets and a new desk, and I'm working on the toilet paper.
All right.
And cushier seats. All right, ready? I move that we sign the contract with AECom Technical Services, Inc. for townhouse window replacements for $70,156.90.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Citizens comment.
Bill already did his earlier. That was the only one I had registered for this evening.
Okay. Consent agenda vote to extend the approval for the Zulo Gallery sandwich board signs for the Dave Brzezicki exhibit from December 20th through January 3rd.
I move that we extend the approval for the Zulu Gallery sandwich board signs for the Dave Brzezicki exhibit from December 20th through January 3rd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
All
aye.
right.
Should have just moved that we approve the consent.
All right, we
agenda.
get a gift. Vote to accept a $200 gift from Girl Scout Troop 70675 to the Medfield Outreach gift account.
I move that we accept a $200 gift from Girl Scout Troop 70675 to the Medfield Outreach gift account.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Meeting minutes. So last meeting, we all agreed we had seen and got back our approval to Frank on May 28th. And then in the meantime, he sent meeting minutes for June 11th. And did you get my email that I approved? it? Okay, I don't remember if I sent that today or not.
Yep, like at 4.
Yeah, late, okay, yeah.
Yep, got it.
Peter, you good with the meeting minutes? for
I'm
June
good
11th?
with them. I hadn't seen your edits. I was curious whether you edited the May 28 minutes to change your comments about the traffic light versus the roundabout that we had a lot of discussion about.
Change it. I forget what I made edits on that one, to be
Well,
honest.
the
I did
minutes
that a while
said
ago.
that you were both in favor of the traffic light, but then you came
Yeah.
to a meeting subsequent and blamed me for writing that same thing in my blog.
No, because
Oh, that's
to
okay.
be very
Actually,
clear.
oh, wow. You just hit. You want to scratch that surface? Really? Because literally, go back to that YouTube and watch my very last comments. I supported going back to the state. I would welcome their input. That is literally what the end of that YouTube. Because when I do my minutes, I watch YouTube. And all I asked nicely that night was, please don't put my name on your blog. If you're going to debate things, I just choose not to. I think you do a great blog. And your comment to me was, well, I can kind of do whatever I want to do, which if that's how you want to do things, that's how you do it. I just asked nicely for my name not to be in it. That's, I think, a simple request.
So my question was whether you changed the minutes.
What would I have changed the minutes to? That's what I'm asking. I
Well, the
forget what
minutes
minutes.
as drafted said that you both wanted traffic lights.
Yes, and that's absolutely correct. At that point in time, in an ongoing deliberation with the information we had, I absolutely thought that was a better option.
And I was-
Absolutely.
And I was told when we do the minutes, I don't have to actually put every if, and but in it, that if the gist of the meeting minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, are captured in the actual minutes, towards the very end, my last statement I think I made in that entire discussion was, I welcome to give it back to the state can give us feedback. But that I gave my comments on what I thought was going on with the light, but I was not saying that was the only way I was going to go. So I didn't nitpick the meeting minutes.
And Gus is correct. It's the minutes at that time.
Right.
At that point in time, you may have changed your position subsequently, but you don't go back and revisit.
Right.
I don't change
Correct.
meeting minutes in that manner. I
Right.
don't re-edit my statements. I watch YouTube and
That's why it's a really bad idea to represent other people's positions after a meeting to the public. They are fully capable of representing themselves. It's best to stay out of it.
Well, I'd just point out to you that the minutes reflect what I wrote.
Just be careful, Pete. Just be careful. You're misrepresenting things when you're in the middle of a deliberation, representing that people have.
So
just
all right,
made-
so then you know what?
That's-
I will go back in and actually write my comments exactly how my last statement was, so that everyone will know. I was very clear. I don't have a problem sending it back to the state and having the state give us more guidance. So Frank, don't approve that. I'll go in, I'll do YouTube. And I might even be a little bit closer on that one. Now that if we're gonna make sure that we put exactly in those minutes. I watch YouTube. If they're 2 hours to 3 hours, it's how I do my minutes. So, thank you.
So that was what, the
So,
May
so
May
we won't
28th,
be,
can't do.
we'll go back to May 28th.
Can we do June 11th?
I'm fine with June 11th. I
Good.
gave my
I
feedback.
think all
on it.
mine were minor
So,
editorial comments. They were just wordsmithing. I don't think there was anything substantive.
No.
So we good with June 11th?
I am.
Okay,
All right,
I move that we approve the minutes for the June 11th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Town administrator update. Here we go.
So I have a couple things. You have my, my formal town administrator December update. We'll get this posted to the website later today, but just a couple things to call out. There are special holiday hours at the townhouse, transfer station. Just to let you know, Chief Carrico has hired all 4 of the Safer Grant firefighters. So
fantastic.
they're actually, yep. So we're really excited about that. And then a couple minor updates. You might have read something about MSBA. That's, a little bit in here. So kidding. We're actually very excited about that. Eileen and I have a meeting tomorrow with MSBA for that.
Yep.
Couple other things. I had the opportunity last Monday to speak at Representative Garlick's retirement party. It was a fantastic event and really appreciated everything that she's done for us over the last 14, 15 years. The list of her accomplishments and the projects she's worked on in Medfield have been really amazing. So tremendous opportunity. And then this past Friday, I was invited to attend the American Planning Association Massachusetts chapter, where we received the 2024 Community of the Year Award. It was fantastic to sit with Sarah. Most of the consultants who have worked in Medfield on that state hospital project at some time or another were in the audience,
nice.
and it was really, really great. In fact, Judy Barrett, who's worked not only on some of our affordable housing projects, but on the state hospital project as well, received the Lifetime Achievement Award for a consulting planner in Massachusetts. So it was really great to be there while she received that as well. So just a fantastic event. So we will hang our plaque very shortly.
Excellent.
And thank you to Sarah for submitting
absolutely.
that. Sarah may have left us, but she hasn't left us. So
How about I
really
couldn't make
appreciate
that?
her thinking about us.
Would have been good to see her. All right. Next meeting dates, June 7th, where the annual town meeting warrant closes. Really? Oh, it's right around the corner. June 21st, January 21st. Then we have February 4th, February 18th, March 4th, March 18th. March 31st is the annual municipal elections. As I mentioned earlier, I did pull papers for that, so that is going. I know a few other people that have pulled papers for other spots. April 1st, April 15th, and then a placeholder for a meeting the week before our annual town meeting, and town meeting on May 5th. Select board member reports.
I had a meeting with the fellow who's looking to put in a basketball facility in town up at the state hospital, south of Hospital Road site. I was asked by the superintendent to attend the Medfield School Building Association meeting where we were voted back into the process. We had an energy committee meeting last week. I also attended Denise Garlick's celebration of her years as a state rep. I went to a Metropolitan Area Planning Committee educational program on accessory dwelling units, what a couple towns have been doing. The Medfield Foundation ran the Angel Run, and I went to the holiday stroll. I had office hours. The Medfield Foundation Legacy Fund had a report back from the grantees, the Medfield TV, the Dwight Derby House, which is doing the East Parlor project, and the Traveling Trunk at the Peak House. Interesting. It's not huge amounts of money that the Medfield Foundation's Legacy Fund can give people, but it seems to make a big difference in the projects in town. was reached out to by Alex Stevens about private haulers. There seem to be a lot of private haulers in town. He was noting, and he was starting a discussion about those and maybe the town trash pickup. And so there was a discussion that was had about that. I looked at the Rose Bay project and shared some input on that, and that's it.
Excellent.
And attended the tree lighting,
Yes.
but bailed before the tree got lit. So that was, but it was fun. It was great because the snow was on the ground. It was actually a great atmosphere. And then obviously the holiday parade.
Yep.
Then after that, I've been out of town for the past week or so, going visiting my grandson out in Coos Bay, Oregon. And I had a good trip out there. I got back about 1:30 this morning. And I guess I'm the last person to talk to the guy who wants to build the basketball facility, because the call I had scheduled last week got postponed, and I'm supposed to talk to him tomorrow.
Oh, good.
So,
Very
so
good.
we should have that discussion. I hope by tomorrow we'll have that discussion and we can feed that into the mill. That's it.
All right. And I too went to Denise Garlick's event. That was a very nice event. It was great to see just the way they did that, with communities chiming in, like the town administrators, family being there, lifelong friends, people have supported her from the day that she pulled papers 14 years ago. So super nice event. I too attended the holiday stroll. They were supposed to do the tree lighting at 6:30. Unfortunately, by like 7:10 they hadn't, and I had to boogie to get to another event. So, but it was nice, great turnout. Festively chilly that evening, so all good. Holiday parade. I think that was probably one of the best attended holiday parades in a while. It was a lot of people.
It's a nice day.
It was nice, and we had the motorcycle kick off the event. So Frank was out there leading the parade, which was nice. I should say Frank. Yeah, Frank.
Different
Say
Frank.
Francis, but he
Different,
doesn't
you
like
were not
Frank.
on the motorcycle.
I realized I'm like, oh, this will go by Francis. I won't do that.
The only problem with that parade is they had the brownies right behind us, and nobody was even looking at us. They're all these little girls, so cute, and they're all into the holiday spirit. And it was like they were looking right past us. We could have ridden on the back bumper of the fire truck, and nobody would have cared.
You get hit in the back of the head with candy.
No,
No throwing
no, they were
candy.
in front of us by the time they were throwing the candy.
No, it was good. And then Angel Run was that Sunday. That was a good turnout. Nice day. I came in third for my age category, and I walked the first 2 tenths. Had a nice conversation with the Newton and Kathy Thompson. And then she sees me later in the day, and she goes, "Hey, you know you came in third." I'm like, she goes, "And you walked with me in the beginning." That's all right. Next year, actually, my train, I'll come in second. Exactly. I couldn't make the Affordable Housing Trust meeting this past Thursday because I was out of town, but I believe that a good attendance. I have not had a chance to watch the recording, but I'll do that. And as I mentioned, I pulled my nomination papers. So if all goes well, I'll do this for another 3 years now that I kind of have a feel for the flow up here. We shall see. And other than that, I think that's where we're at. And that'd be that. Are we good?
Good.
All right. Motion to
Ready?
adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
8:24. Not bad.